your grandmother has lost her mind, I heard my daughter-in-law whisper one night. She doesn't remember things. She's useless now. We should put her in a home before she burns the house down. Her words cut me like glass. I sat in the dark corner of the kitchen, my hands resting on my lap, pretending not to hear. But every syllable fell sharp into my chest. My own blood, the family I raised with these very hands, now called me senile, useless, a burden. Child, I want you to understand this. The deepest wounds don't always come from strangers. They come from those you love most, when their love has grown thin. That night, I didn't cry. My eyes were dry, though my heart ached. I simply folded the dishcloth I had been holding and placed it neatly on the counter. I moved quietly back to my little room, my slippers brushing against the wooden floor. I lay awake, listening to their voices in the next room, their whispers crawling through the walls like snakes. But the very next morning, something happened that none of them expected. A knock came at the door. A hard, certain knock that carried weight. And with it, my whole life story began to unravel. Here now, in this small house with peeling paint and old creaking boards. You ask why your grandmother sometimes stares long at the fire, her eyes wet, her lips pressed tight. Such a night, as the rain taps on the windows and the lamp glows soft, I will tell you. But I will not tell it as a tale of weakness. No, child, it is a tale of survival. I was born in a small town in Ohio. My father was a steel worker, my mother a quiet woman with hands always busy sewing. We were poor, but we were proud. I learned early that life does not give you softness unless you fight for it. At 16, I married your grandfather, Samuel. Oh, he was tall, strong, and his laugh filled every corner of a room. But war was waiting for him, and within a year he was shipped overseas. He wrote me letters at first, long ones full of hope, but then the letters slowed, then stopped. One day, a man in uniform knocked at my door. His face was stone as he handed me the folded flag. I became a widow before I was 20. And with Samuel gone, I was left with a child in my belly, your father. Do you know what it means, child, to bring a life into the world while your own heart feels broken? I worked nights scrubbing offices, my hands raw and cracked from bleach. In the mornings, I walked miles to the laundry house to wash clothes for pennies. At night, I sat rocking your father in my arms, humming lullabies through tears. I survived, but it was survival carved out of pain. As years went on, I raised him alone. I gave him everything I had, every coin, every bit of strength. He grew strong, clever, ambitious. I was proud, so proud. I thought my sacrifices were worth it. I thought he would see. But time changes hearts, child. And comfort makes people forget the hands that carried them. When your father married, I tried to be gentle with his wife. I stayed out of her way, I cooked meals, I rocked you when you were a baby. I thought love would bind us all together. But slowly, I began to notice the looks. The whispers. The plate pushed away when I cooked. The way my chair seemed smaller and smaller at the family table. And then, those words. Senile. Useless. But let me tell you a secret. I was not losing my mind. I was not blind. I had been quiet, yes. But all the while, I was listening. Watching. Preparing. The knock at the door that morning, it was from a lawyer. He brought papers sealed in a worn envelope, papers that carried a truth no one in this house had expected. Papers that held the inheritance my brother left me before he passed. I had known about it. I had hidden it. I had kept it close, waiting. Because I learned long ago that the world tests you not once, but again and again. And now, as you sit here by my feet, your small hands wrapped around mine, you must know, this is not just a story about money, or betrayal. This is a story about dignity, about holding your head high when others try to bow it down. Tonight, I will tell you everything. About the papers, about the choice I made, about the truth that turned their whispers into silence. But for now, remember this first lesson, never let anyone decide your worth for you. Do you understand, child? They told everyone I was senile. But soon, I showed them the truth. The rain was still falling when I opened the envelope that morning. My hands trembled, though not from weakness, but from the weight of what I held inside. The lawyer, a kind-eyed man in a grey suit, looked at me with respect, something I had not seen in my own home for a long while. "These are the final papers, Mrs. Hayes," he said softly. "Your brother wanted you to have everything. He wrote clearly that no one else could claim it." I nodded, my throat tight. My brother, Thomas, had been the only person who stood by me after Samuel died. He worked the railroad his whole life, never married, never had children. When he passed, he left me his savings and the deed to a small piece of land outside town. I had kept that secret locked away for years, knowing one day it might protect me. As I closed the envelope, I heard footsteps behind me. My daughter-in-law, Clara, stood there, her face pale. She had expected the lawyer to bring papers about me being sent to a nursing home, perhaps. But instead, she saw me holding something she could not touch. "What's that?" she asked sharply. "Nothing you need to worry about," I replied. My voice was steady, though inside, my heart beat fast. For the first time in years, I felt power, not cruel power, but the strength of truth. "Child, you must understand what it means to live in a house where love turns into judgment." Every day after that knock, Clara grew more restless. I saw her eyes follow me when I folded the papers and slipped them under the loose board beneath my bed. I saw the way she nudged your father at the dinner table, whispering in his ear, her lips cold with suspicion. "Your mother is hiding something," I once overheard her hiss. But I said nothing. Silence can be a sword sharper than any word. Instead, I carried on with my days as though nothing had changed. I swept the floors, baked bread, hummed to you while you played on the rug. Yet beneath that calm, I was thinking, watching, waiting. At night, when the house was quiet, I sat by the window, the papers on my lap, and remembered all the sacrifices that had brought me here. I remembered walking in the snow with torn shoes, clutching your father's small hand as we searched for work. I remembered selling my wedding ring to buy him books so he could study. I remembered standing in the back of crowded churches, praying that God would give me enough strength to keep going. And now, after all of that, they dared to call me useless. Until one evening, it spilled over. Clara had prepared a grand dinner. The table was heavy with roast chicken, potatoes, steaming bread. She passed plates around, smiling for the guests she had invited, neighbors and friends who filled the room with chatter. When it came time to sit, she placed chairs for everyone but me. "There isn't enough room," she said sweetly, her eyes cold. "Mother Hayes can eat later in the kitchen." The guests shifted uncomfortably, but no one spoke. I stood there, my hands trembling, not from weakness, but from the weight of years of swallowed pride. I wanted to shout, to throw the truth on the table and watch her choke on it. But instead, I lowered my eyes and walked quietly to the small kitchen. There, I ate alone. One piece of bread, one bowl of soup. I listened to the laughter from the other room, each laugh like a stone thrown at my chest. But I also smiled faintly, because I knew what they did not. I knew that very soon, the truth would come to light. Child, when people wrong you, the greatest power you hold is not anger. It is patience. Let them think they have won. Let them believe their cruelty has gone unseen. For in time, truth will rise like the sun, no matter how dark the night has been. And the night after that dinner, truth began to rise. I remember sitting in my small room, the envelope open on my lap. Your father came in, his face tight with worry. "Mother," he said, "Clara tells me you've been hiding money. Is it true?" I looked at him, my son, the boy I had carried through winters and sickness, the boy I had fed when I had nothing but scraps. His eyes, once soft with love, now searched me with suspicion. "Do you really believe that of me?" I asked quietly. He shifted, uncomfortable. "It's just, she says you can't handle things anymore. Maybe if you gave it to us, we could manage it better." The words pierced me deeper than Clara's cruelty ever could. My own son, blinded by her whispers. I folded the papers carefully, stood, and pressed them against my chest. One day, I said, you will see the truth. And when you do, you will remember this moment. You will remember what it felt like to doubt the hands that raised you. He opened his mouth, but no words came. He turned and left, leaving me in the dim light, my heart both broken and strong. Child, that night, I prayed harder than I had in years. Not for revenge, not for anger, but for wisdom. For the strength to know when to reveal the truth. And as I prayed, I felt a peace come over me. The time was coming. The time when their whispers would be silenced, when their eyes would widen in shock, when they would understand who I truly was, not senile, not useless, but a woman who had cared more than they would ever know. And soon, my love, soon, you will hear how it all unfolded. The morning of the reckoning came quietly, almost like any other. The sun filtered weakly through the lace curtains, dust motes dancing in the golden light. I woke with a calmness in my chest, as though God himself had whispered, "Today is the day." Your father had invited guests again, this time the pastor and a man from the bank. Clara's idea, of course. She wanted proof, something to corner me with. They thought they would finally strip me bare of whatever secret I had been keeping. I sat at the far end of the table, hands folded, papers resting in the pocket of my worn apron. Clara bustled about with her false sweetness, pouring coffee, smiling at the pastor, glancing at me with those sharp eyes that always cut too deep. Finally, the man from the bank cleared his throat. "Mrs. Hayes," he said, turning toward me with polite firmness. "There have been questions in this household. It is believed you may not be in a position to manage your affairs properly. Would you mind clarifying your situation?" Clara leaned forward, her lips already forming the smug smile of victory. My son sat tense beside her, his hands clasped, his gaze fixed on me, silently begging for an easy answer. I let the silence stretch. The ticking of the old clock on the wall grew loud. Even the pastor seemed uneasy. And then, child, I reached into my apron and drew out the envelope. I placed it gently on the table, smoothing its creases with deliberate care. "These," I said, my voice steady, "are the deeds and savings entrusted to me by my late brother, Thomas Hayes. He left everything to me, not to my son, not to his wife, not to anyone else. To me." The bankman frowned, confused. Clara paled. My son blinked, his mouth opening, but no words came. I slid the papers across the table. The bankman unfolded them, scanned them carefully, and nodded. "This is perfectly legal. The property and the funds are hers, without question." A silence like thunder filled the room. Clara's face twisted, all her false charm melting away, leaving behind the bitterness she had tried so hard to hide. She slammed her hand against the table. "But she's old. She doesn't know what she's doing. She's not capable." The pastor lifted his hand gently. "I see a woman with more clarity and strength than many half her age." And then, child, I turned to your father. I looked him straight in the eyes. "Do you see now?" I whispered. "Do you remember the nights I stayed awake sewing clothes so you could have a school uniform? Do you remember the bread I broke in half, giving you the larger piece while I starved? Do you remember the prayers I whispered over you while you slept? And yet, you believed I would hide things from you out of greed." His eyes filled with tears. He lowered his head into his hands. "Mother, forgive me. But forgiveness does not come so easily. It must be earned." Child, that day changed everything. Clara left the room in a storm of anger, her footsteps pounding against the floorboards. The guests sat in uncomfortable silence. My son, broken with shame, sat beside me, clutching my hand like a boy again. "I forgot who you were," he said softly. I let her voice drown out yours. "I doubted you when you had given me no reason to doubt. I have been blind." I stroked his hand with my frail fingers. "Love makes us blind sometimes," I told him. "But love must also make us see again. Do not let this lesson pass by. Remember it." After that day, Clara could no longer look me in the eye. She kept her distance, her power over the household broken. My son grew gentler, quieter, almost as if he had rediscovered the boy he once was. But the truth is, I did not reveal those papers to punish them. I revealed them to remind them. To remind all of us that dignity does not fade with age, and that sacrifice should never be repaid with. Now, child, as I sit here with you in this small house, I want you to carry this lesson in your heart. One day, you too will face betrayal, whispers, and doubt. People will question your worth, try to erase your voice. And when they do, remember me. Remember that strength does not come from shouting the loudest, or striking back with cruelty. Strength comes from patience, from truth, from the quiet knowledge of who you are. They told everyone I was senile. They thought I was a burden, a useless old woman. But I showed them the truth. And the truth, child, is this: love endures. Sacrifice matters. And dignity, once held, can never be taken away. So, when the time comes for you to tell your story, tell it with pride. Do not hide your scars, for they are proof that you survived. Now, take my hand. Do you feel it? Though frail, though aged, it still holds strength. And so will yours, even when the world doubts you. This is my gift to you, not land, not money, but the unbreakable truth of who we are.